Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure?
It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Hello, everyone. Oh, gee, and as soon as I turn this on, I see my Christmas lights aren't on. Let's get them on. How are you today? I hope good. I've got so many things going on. So many things are happening. Trying to keep track of it all this morning. I'm going to be going on a field trip this weekend. I got family Christmas on Saturday, and then I'm going to do a field trip that is related to the Geekverse on, I'm going to have to leave right after the Christmas party on Saturday. It's a lunch Christmas party. I've got, it's going to be about a 7-hour, it may probably end up being about an 8-hour trip that I got to go for. And then we'll be there Sunday for just a little bit, and then we'll be able to drive back home. But I'll be putting out where I'm going, and I don't know how that's going to impact the streams. It would be great if I would be able to stream on the trip, but we're going to see. I'm going to get mobile stuff ready to go, but then, we'll just see. I'll have my phone, though, so I'll be taking pictures and stuff. More information on that to come. So lots of stuff's happening. also trying to prepare for the next show, Dinner and a Board Game. So who we got here? BGD is here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Stray is here. Theo is here. And so is Keith. Hello, all. Welcome. Good to see you. So today, what our main topic is going to be is I figured that it's just about time to start thinking about transitioning. Not that we're done looking at RPGs, but we have looked at a ton of RPGs on this broadcast, this show, since it started, with a specific mind toward how to play them and what their action resolution mechanics are like. And then, of course, we also did a lot of look at the dice. And earlier, that was several months ago before I was live streaming, but we did a fantastic breakdown of a whole bunch of the math behind dice and what the D20 is doing and what the bell curve is doing, and if that would do better for us or worse for us or anything like that. Let me go over here and change something. See if that helps at all. So what I thought it would do is time to, okay, let's try to take some of those principles and let's try to come up with some kind of foundation for what I'm calling the Faded Edge RPG. I got that as the name of the RPG that I want to work on because I've always wanted to make one. And I want to do the worlds of Rabavania and Theophany, but I figured, hey, now is the time if I'm going to do an RPG, because we didn't do a custom one for Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. We ended up just going with 5th edition. And there are reasons to do that. But we also said, hey, that we could do a dual kind of system where, okay, there's 5th edition and then also some other type of RPG, maybe one that I want to put together myself. So I want to have at least those core rules ready, the action resolution system, know what we're doing before I start writing more in the Theophany and Rabavania world books. So it's ready. So we really need to get started with that. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Basically, what would I want out of an RPG? And then how might we make that happen depending on how much time we've got. Okay, let's sip and breathe, and then we will go to the morning messages. So, breathe. Always such a moment of camaraderie in the morning. All right, let's do the messages, and then we will go to our main topic. The Cultist is our comedy web show about modern-day Lovecraftian cultists just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand.
Fish are friends, not food.
I'm a little worried about Rob.
Yes, it's happening.
Ever since we tried to summon Cthulhu, he hasn't been the same.
I'm growing gills. Gills! My transformation into a deep one has finally begun.
Rob, we don't see any gills.
It's these kids getting involved in all this stuff causes them to go crazy.
Seasons 1 and Season 2 are on my YouTube channel now. Each episode is only 5 to 7 minutes long, and you can watch the replays of the live after parties that we had with the cast and crew. They were a lot of fun. The Morning Grind is brought to you by Ravenkeep. That's the company that I set up to publish the things that we are making here on the show. Check out ravenkeep.net. You'll find merchandise from the cultists, such as mugs and coffee, as well as board games, the Goodnight Sword ebook, and the Terra Tiles pre-order. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by World Anvil. Your world building in your games, and also be sure to use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off any annual World Anvil subscription. I knew World Anvil was great for game masters and for writers who are developing their worlds and want a beautiful site to display and manage all of that information. But what I didn't know was that World Anvil also offers extensive tools for players, including character sheets, journals, inventory management, and spell books, basically all the digital tools a player who is looking to immerse themselves in their character would need. We're going to be using World Anvil here on The Morning Grind to build out the worlds of Rabavania and Theophany, so we'll get to see it in action here as we go on the show. All right, that's it for the messages. Let's get to the main topic. All right. So let's see what we got here. I'm just going to be kind of writing this out with the auxiliary camera as I go here. So I'm going to add auxiliary camera to the stream. And how about that? So we can just sit here and talk about at least the things that I would kind of be interested in having in an RPG. And I see that it's telling me that my signal is low. And I was just sitting here trying to figure out why that could be. Nothing over here is going on that I know of that's different. So it just must be the way the internet is at this moment. I noticed that was the case yesterday too. So, but it just, it got better as we went. So it may only be down for a few seconds. All right. So what we need in an RPG, or what I would like. Now, it doesn't mean that we're going to get all of these things, but things I would like in an RPG. And one of the reasons that I was trying to put together this list and also look at a bunch of the different RPGs was because maybe there was an ideal one out there. And maybe there was one that we should just have immediately used and not try to, and not have to go through the process of creating one. Although I've always wanted to create one. So that's also a reason why just to go ahead and do this is because, well, why not do this? It's been on my list for a long time. It wasn't done when I was making Journey. So let's try this now. But this is all in no particular order. This is just kind of my thinking here as I go. So I would like to have a narrative and let's say adventure focus. Theater of the mind. That doesn't mean you can't do other things. That doesn't mean that we can't have, miniatures and use them and things like that too, or have tactical combat or whatever. But it just means that I would like this to, I think, to be the focus here, narrative, adventure focus, and be prepared for people to be able to sit down, sketch things out, play the game, and not have to have battle mats and terrain and things like that. I think little expected prep on the, let's just say GM's part. Little expected prep. Andrew asks, are you also thinking about the type of player you want? Yes. Hang on. Let me answer that in just a moment. Okay, little expected prep on the GM's part. So meaning, story-focused prep. So story-focused prep. Okay, so the game master could prep all of this with thinking about the story that you want, thinking about, what the story is, the adventure that's going to be had, writing out notes about the locations and what's going to happen and things like that. Not specifically to contrast that with no expectation of terrain and miniatures. I mean, we can have them, but, players don't necessarily, the game master doesn't necessarily have to do that, right? Focus on the story prep, not expectation of terrain, or also digital virtual tabletops, digital tabletops. Because one thing that I heard during the pandemic was that people were saying, one person was saying, my prep as a game master has gotten more by doing online RPGs. And he didn't like that because he said the players are actually expecting more out of me. I can sit down and just play at the table. But if I'm going to do an online RPG, people are expecting the digital tabletop stuff to be happening, line of sight, manipulating all of that in the maps, the digital maps out there, all of the custom digital tokens that they would not be expecting for the game master to put out when we are just playing at the table. So even for online play, no expectation that you're going to be doing advanced stuff with the tabletop. Keep the prep in the story prep, not here. You can do it if you want. We can add it in, but just we're not expecting all of that to be going on. Andrew says, are you thinking about the type of player you want? Yes. Okay, so this is a great point. Expand RPG player base. To people who like fantasy, let's say board games, but not RPGs traditionally. Because I've got a lot of friends and family members, more specifically, that will play games like Gloomhaven. They'll play Hero Quest, especially. They'll play Descent. They'll play things like that, Zombicide, but traditionally they don't play RPGs. Do you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? The answer is always like no. So I would like to be able to have a game system that is basically moving us away from the board game aspect of this into the role-playing side of this, but in an easy way, which means we don't need, great complexity of rules. Well, and a lot of downtime. With a board game, you're playing the board game and you are into the board game. With RPGs, sometimes it takes forever to actually get playing. So, yes, that would be the kind of player that I would be looking for. Or would want to be able to incorporate into the game, because that expands my ability to have players there as well. BGD says, sounds like a common characterization for all aspects of your ideal game would be that it has significant levels of abstraction. Maybe. I'll have to think about that. Maybe. We'll see. In some ways, yes. In other ways, maybe not. I don't know. I'll have to think about that more. The phrase that some games have used is online play first. And I think that got a bad rap as far as a phrase goes because of this digital tabletop stuff. That might have had something to do with 1D&D and stuff like that. They were thinking about, well, online play first, but that means that we're doing something really complicated with the digital tabletop and stuff. But that's not what I mean here. But, it's easier to get people together by a video call and stuff like this. So easy to play over things like a video call when you've got basically that going on, and a whiteboard. The digital whiteboard that you can mark stuff down. That if you have access to that you can play rather easily online, not having to go through all of this, but that, hey, this is a system that has paid attention to the limitations of online play, their advantages, their disadvantages. But what are the disadvantages? What are the limitations? Can you play this if you're on a video call with people and have a virtual whiteboard? Stray says, less war game, more creative narrative. Yeah. I love the tactical combat. I can love the tactical combat. There are some games that are great with the tactical combat. But I think that for what I create here, I'm moving in a different direction than that. So moving toward the more creative narrative rather than the war game. There'll be time for wargaming. There will definitely be time for wargaming. But I'm thinking that you can't do everything, and there are compromises to be made. So I think more toward the creative narrative side. BGD says, I think it's hard to relieve your game of all the trappings and tables and highly specialized rules mechanics without relaxing verisimilitude and scaling back realism and simulation. Yeah, I think it's hard to relieve your game of all the trappings and tables. I think by table, you mean like charts and things like that, and highly specialized rules mechanic without relaxing verisimilitude and scaling back realism and simulation. Yeah, I agree with that. And so I would specifically say here that this is not simulationist. Let me not be simulationist with this. There's a time for simulation. So yeah, I'll put this down here. Not simulationist. There's a time for simulationist, and I enjoy simulationist, but that's going to compromise, this group of people right here. This group of people who don't like playing RPGs are not going to enjoy the simulationist game. They're not going to play that. Yeah, that's what you mean by layers of abstraction. Yeah, okay, yeah, I got you. I agree with that. Yeah, this is not trying to simulate everything that like GURPS is trying to simulate. So I said session centric. Yes, it's great to play a multi-month or multi-year campaign, taking a character all the way from level 1 to level 20 or something in Dungeons and Dragons. But in my experience, it doesn't happen all that often. I wish it did happen more often, but getting people together to play the game, whether it's at the tabletop or online, is difficult enough. And so I would like to have, for one game to have a really good time, much less saying, hey, do you want to commit to, the next 2 years worth of playing this game? So I think you'll get more playtime if you are session centric. And this means like pack as much adventure action into a session into 2 to 3 hours as possible. So sit down, pack adventure into 2 to 3 hours. That doesn't mean that you can't continue. So there should be rules for, your character's change and growth and all of that. But I'm just saying that we need to be able to sit down. We need to have as much fun as we possibly can in 2 to 3 hours. And then that can conclude the game. If you can continue later, great. But if not, hey, we've packed this game session with everybody, had a great time, had a great adventure, had a great experience. And that was it. And then that should also allow you to play more variety. This should get more variety in there. Because I've got a lot of different types of characters I want to play, but I will never be able to play them because I don't have time to, do a 1 to 20th level campaign with all of those. But if we just do, session-centric adventures, then I'd be able to play a greater variety of characters. You could do them episodically. They could be episodic. That would be one way to think about it. That you have, a satisfying beginning, middle, and end to the adventures during the game session. And you don't, okay, well, we'll get to the fun part next week or get to the real thing next time. You have a beginning, middle, and end and are focused on that. So I would guess that, adventures or things like that need to be able to be played in that kind of timeline. I mean, other people can do other things, but build it with the expectation that that might be what's happening. That does mean short character creation time. I have no problem with pre-generated characters. But lots of people want to create their own characters, but I don't want to have to spend an entire session creating characters. Like, I think this needs to be like 15 mins max. So the characters could be generated, and then you could get adventuring during a realistic session in today's world. If you're starting from scratch, here's how you get your character off the ground. Oh, you're taking notes along with me? Huh. Okay, cool. Andrew says, I'm way out of the game, but there used to be loads of very simple RPGs. Think back to Dragon Magazine in the 80s, like Clayorama. Simple rules, very quick. Have you looked at some of those? I have not. Those have not come up. This is the first time someone has mentioned something like that. Back of Dragon Magazine, RPGs. I'm making note of that over here. RPGs on the back of Dragon Magazine. In the 80s, like Clayorama. Looks like something we might want to take a look at in the on the morning grind here. Intense combat. I've been thinking a lot about the Riddle of Steel since we took a deep dive into its combat system yesterday. One possible idea, I mean, you could have different modules for different styles of play. To make it kind of adaptable to different needs. But intense combat, that's short. I don't want to go around the table for 20 rounds, chipping off hit points. Short, intense, short, meaningful. Actually, intense combat, meaningful. So when it happens in the session, it's meaningful. Something important happens. It's exciting. It wasn't just taking off some hit points of another goblin. BGD says, to accomplish some of your stated goals, it would be great to create an RPG that didn't need character sheets. To do this, you could use narrative tags for everything that defines a given character. That is kind of close to one of my ideas here with character creation. Now, I don't think you would have to do it this way. But I would like as one option a card draft. So this is kind of like what I think the tags are that you're talking about here. That I want the character, and this is, so I've seen things like this now in some of the other RPGs that we're looking at. But I kind of think that a great way to define a character would be adjective, profession. These words are subject to change, but just as an example, profession, there might need to be some kind of background. So, you could say adjective, profession, former, background, from, place. So you have adjective, profession, maybe somehow work in a background, from, place. And then if you had all these different cards, you had your professions, and this could be like class, background, some kind of secondary skill set or something like that, from some type of location. And in the beginning, I was even thinking this could be like big city. So even if you weren't familiar with the setting, but you wanted to be from a big city, well, you can come up with the name of the city later, or what city it can be declared later. But you're from the big city, or you're from the woods or something like that. And if you had, gallant knight from Camelot, something like that might be a good way to be able to construct the basics of a character. And then you could draft that, because the game master could then decide what types of characters he or she wants in a game by selecting, okay, here's a deck of adjectives, here's a deck of professions that are appropriate for this particular adventure, here's a appropriate locations, and then hand those decks out to all of the different players and let them draft the card they want. Everybody gets a first, second, third pick, whatever, and pass those around the table. And then sitting there in front of you is your character. And a trouble. I do like the idea of the trouble from Fate, and I think it manifests in some of the other things we were looking at as well. So you would also have something that is wrong and makes things complicated for you. VGD says, I would limit character generation to 3 to 7 attributes, each with 3 or so narrative tags, since that's the range of items most people can remember anyway. Yeah, as far as core attributes, we're getting a little bit deeper into the design phase, but that's okay. I'm thinking that we just need 4 attributes. And it's something like strength, dexterity. What was it? Intelligence, something like IQ, and then also presence, or we could call that charisma, or bearing. I had been going back and forth between presence and bearing, but I hadn't thought about it too much. So this is influencing things with your strength, influencing things with your dexterity, influencing things with your intelligence, or influencing things with your social ability, basically. So this is other, intelligent creatures that you've got to interact with, whether that's people or animals or something like that. Because your core attributes should be how you interact with the world. And I thought that was too small. But, even something like GURPS, most all of your rolls are either DX or IQ. Andrew says, maybe a dual track where you have a stripped down version, pre-gen characters with limited choices, and then expanded ones. The short ones lets people get right into it. I would like that. Yeah, I think there's a way to do it, to do that too. You could have pre-generated, or you could have the short stuff that you to get into a quick character creation, or you could do something more advanced. That would go back to something about the modules we were talking about. Oh yeah, potential modules. So we could have pre-generated easy character generation and then advanced character generation. I'd start with the easy character generation. We could definitely have that. Non-inflationary hit points. This kind of goes to combat, but like I said, this is no particular order. This is just stuff I was thinking about. Non-inflationary hit points. Or no hit points. Could use something else. But not bring in all of the difficulties I have with inflationary hit point system. Oh, we got BGD, another thumbs up for Andrew's idea here. Yep, I like it. Use of conditions and potentially extensive use of conditions. I like conditions. Similar to aspects, or I forget what they call them in Cortex, but something like that. I like conditions. What happened to me? You're charmed. You're knocked over. You're blinded. All of those things. You're on fire, right? Actually, I found that Pathfinder has very extensive conditions. So I think a simple way to understand what's happening to your character would be with conditions. And I would like to also be able to have cards with these. You could use the index cards, the writing things out. But if you were also creating some type of card decks, well, we could use cards for character creation. We could also use cards for conditions. I would like having cards available there. And that kind of goes along with Fate, like in-play aspects. Especially for the environment. to focus players on what matters. In all things, focus players on what matters. Instead of trying to overwhelm the players with details and everything like that, well, if it's on a card, if it's an aspect, like in using fate terminology, if it's a aspect that's on the table, something is on fire, something is broken and rusty, or here is this particular object, focus the players on what matters so that they can then figure out why it matters and how to use it, rather than trying to figure out what in this long list of things that could possibly be in this room are actually significant to the story that we're trying to tell and the adventure we're trying to have. I go back and forth on the idea of meta currency. So question mark there. So possible, like the fate points or the cortex plot points. We've come up with some negatives for them as we've been talking about the game creation, some of these different games, and some people don't like them or are very anti them. And we talked about like making you pay fate points in order to have, our example was always the person who's on fire continue to take damage. Seems weird. So Cortex, actually, I think Cortex still has the PowerPoints, but Cortex has a lot of things that seems to work well about using the aspects, for better words, of the game, and still allows them to be powered without the expenditure of these PowerPoints. So that would be best to me. I think I would like that best, but there still may be reasons to have this. I just got to make sure that it actually fits in and is being used if there's going to be meta currency. So Trey says, sorry I'm running behind today. No problem. Sounds like a Fate character sheet with a different dice resolution mechanic, maybe what you're looking for. Well, okay, yeah, we are using a different dice resolution technique. But yeah, I mean, something. Fate is one of the games that I think of most when I'm thinking about RPG design. I tend to think about Fate, and I think about GURPS, and then the other side, I think of Fate, I think about GURPS. Lately, I've also been thinking a lot about Cortex. I've also been enjoying thinking a lot about that black hack. Now, I did like that black hack. There is a lot of stuff in there that I liked. So I'm going to think about it, go back and look at it some more as well. But yeah, I would say that, when I originally kind of started out this journey or thinking about this, okay, if I'm going to do this, there was a lot of stuff that I liked about Fate. And I think I said that kind of in the beginning when we were looking at Fate to begin with. And I do want to take a look at, there's one version of Fate that we haven't looked at. So we'll do that one day. I believe it's the Fate. We've looked at Fate Accelerated. We've looked at the Fate Core. There's another version that actually has some good stuff going for it. So, because it was doing a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but not everything. It wasn't quite right. It's not quite right for me. And we've talked about some of the different things that it wasn't doing during the past month and a half of looking at RPGs. BGD, dice. I'm looking at dice. I've got a certain probability distribution that I came up with later because of the result of all of our analysis in the previous videos. I've got a system that seems like it would be a good one to go with. I've got a lot more work on to work on it to do, but it would require custom dice, which I'm not opposed to. But the only way I could get it to work, I was trying to get it to work with just 2d10s, but it actually works better if you have custom dice as well. Tricube Tales would be a great place to start and let things grow from there. I have no idea what that is. Let me make note of that. Trey says the meta currency I like most lately is the idea of momentum. Fate condensed. Yes, fate condensed. That's what the one that I was thinking of. The meta currency I like most lately is the idea of momentum. I haven't. I know what you're talking. I think I know what you're talking about here. I haven't seen. Is that used in this Tricube Tales? Stray says, I play with one reroll a session. You can give another player your reroll, but once per sit down. Yeah. What game was it that we were looking at? I think that was Savage Worlds that was talking about being very session focused with its meta currency and having a flow within a session. Andrew says, not to derail, but for your ideal board game player that doesn't do an RPG, what reason, real or perceived, stop them, and how is this addressing those? What complexity of rules, and I think inability to get to the action. I mean, like, I would like to be able to play with, like, my nephews. Okay, now, the oldest one will play Dungeons & Dragons, but when I played Dungeons & Dragons with him, I gave him a pre-generated character, and I basically flung him into the action. We weren't, wandering around, and, he did get to pick which quest he wanted off of the quest board, but, we basically got right to the action. So I would say rules bloat. So actually the next thing I was going to say, so that kind of speaks to that, is a unified action resolution mechanic. Which seems like, a lot of things that people, are going toward. So that we're not constantly looking up how to do any particular task because every task is different. So if you can explain how to play the game, that's why I've been so focused on let's figure out how to actually play all of these different RPGs. What is the action resolution mechanic? How do we play? That's to me, that's a big one. The session focused, like not having to create characters. They don't create characters. They don't want to create characters. They don't want to spend an hour sitting there creating characters and not playing. So you got to create characters fast, and you got to get them into the action. So I think that having ease of play here, pre-generated or fast characters, and focused on getting into action would at least get some of those people to potentially try it and get them to the table. Okay, let me look up that one. Modifus. 2D10. 2D20 system. Look at for momentum. Okay, so yeah, Trey says momentum is an idea I got from the 2D20 games where your extra successes can be banked for later use. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'll check that out. That might be something like that might be what we need here. Matt says, hi. Hello, Matt. Good to see you. I do want to have crafting rules. And this, I'm talking about crafting as just general making things. But I think this needs to be, like forging or alchemy. We don't know how to incorporate alchemy into the game, but forging or alchemy. But this is all things that are done in downtime away from the table. So if you are continuing, one adventure is done, and then you've got some downtime with your character, well, then while you can think of what your character is doing and craft and whatever you're doing to make things away from the table, and then you come back and then you've got it. You don't have to worry about adjudicating a whole bunch of roles. I like the idea of downtime between sessions. I said we're session focused, but this is just notes in no particular order. But man, my problem with downtime in Dungeons and Dragons is that I felt like it ate a tremendous amount of playtime. We'd get back and everybody would have to adjudicate downtime, which is nice, but everybody's got, it involved so much rolling and everybody had to decide what they were going to do. And then there was a whole bunch of rolling, which means the game master doesn't have to look at it. You could just trust everybody. But in general, when rolling's going on, you're all there at the table, and the game master is watching as the rolls are being made and adjudicating things. And that just ate so much time. So if we're going to have something like this, which I would like to have, this needs to be something that can be done away from the table. And then when you come back to the table, all of your crafting stuff is done. You can talk about what you did, and then you move on. BGD says, one way to introduce a board game feel to the introductory phases of an RPG would be to implement discovery play, where your PC starts as a blank canvas and develops during play, opening up choices. It could be. It could be. See, but some of these people will play something like Gloomhaven. Trey says, alchemy is usually just either a dice modification +1 or some story effect turned into a toad, etc. Well, I would want you to, if you collect, you're on the adventure and you collect the following items, for your potion, your spell, your potion ingredients, then you need to be able to turn those ingredients into whatever potion it is that you want to make. Like, so time, actually, I do want time. That's something I need to put down here. Time as a resource. I want to focus on having time as a resource. I think time is underused in RPGs. So I got, for instance, with alchemy, I got my laboratory, I got the following 4 magical ingredients, and I got 1 week's worth of time. Look down at my sheet, whatever, what can I make in that? Then you come back to the table and you say, hey, in my week off, I turned these things into this potion. And somebody else can say, well, I had the following ingredients and I turned that into this sword that I forged, or something like that. So, okay, BGD, we're continuing the thought here. One way to introduce the board game feel to the introductory phases of an RPG would be to implement discovery play, where your PC starts as a blank canvas and develops during play, opening up choices for the players to decide how their PCs narratively developed and acquired the attributes, skills, and abilities, and the dice and gameplay have given them. That could work. That could work. Like, I don't think that everything has to be specified necessarily at the very beginning, because, like I said, like my example was, hey, you don't have to know what city you're from or something like that. You could be from the big city. Maybe this is powerful warrior, but you don't really specify that you're a knight yet. That could work too. Or maybe your background is something you could specify, later during play. Well, this is working, so maybe I actually did have some other kind of background. Trey is our specialist in other RPGs. Blades in the Dark. Look at that for downtime. So Blades in the Dark has a great way of doing downtime, which would be great for inventors or alchemists. Okay, got it. We'll check that out. And then, okay, time as a resource. Look at clocks in many of the PBTM games. This is Powered by the Apocalypse. Powered by the Apocalypse. I always forget that acronym. I do need to look at Powered by the Apocalypse. I've got it, and I've read it before, but I need to look at that again. Time as a resource to manage. I do want there to be travel and wilderness rules. I'd like for that to be a part of the game. So that doesn't necessarily mean, it could mean that if you're being session focused, that, hey, you just start your adventure at the dungeon. That could be a perfectly good way to do it. On the other hand, I would like to be able to adjudicate travel and wilderness rules, but, without taking up the entire at time at the table, unless the entire time of the table is supposed to be the travel part. But, to have actual travel and wilderness rules for getting from places to place, trying to explore, or whatever else that is, that are good, that are meaningful, that are contributing to the story, and then get you through it. As in, not, hundreds of random encounters. because I understand the purpose of random encounters. In fact, we should probably just study random encounters in general. Random encounters have a purpose that if you're, lost out there in the woods, you may be expending resources. And if you're not doing that, that may not be a good idea to actually have one if it's not actually impacting what you're doing. Because, in some RPGs, and I'm thinking about 5th edition here, you get your stuff back so fast. You have this random encounter, but it's not actually taking stuff away from you, right? Because you'll do a long rest and you'll have so much of your energy back. Now, it might take other things like food and stuff like that, but that's what I'm talking about. Random encounters are supposed to be doing something. They're not just supposed to be something random that happens at the table, especially if I'm trying to be story focused at this session, focused on what matters, not on some random encounter. Iron Sworn is a great free game with many of the things you may just not want to use that system as a whole. Let me look up that one too. Iron Sworn. RPG, great free system. Board card games are confusing for us non-gamers. I always have to watch YouTube. Just did it yesterday for Renegade's G.I. Joe card game. I haven't played that one. I think people forget us non-gamers don't speak the language. Well, that's a great point. Let me put not only, I was thinking over here. I had been thinking about trying to grow into people who already play board games, but not RPG or card games or things like this. But we should also make a note, accessible to non-gamers who are coming in. So if you've got people who you might want to have a great time with and play a game, but they're not gamers to begin with, well, then they need to be able to start with this. You want to be able to have them over and have a great time and have an adventure. Also accessible to non-gamers getting started. Let's see here. Travel and wilderness rules. We said that. Okay. An encumbrance. Inventory system that enhances gameplay. And increases fun. We've talked about this several times, I think, on some of the different live streams. That what's the purpose of the encumbrance and inventory system? That traditionally, I think people don't like it. And this is one of those things that's way too ticky for people who are not role players. Hey, add up all the stuff you got. Figure out how much it weighs down to the ounce. Track, this thing, all these things you're carrying, then recompute, compare that to what your strength is. And what's the result? Well, you're going to be able to do something worse. Your movement's going to be restricted. You're not going to be able to do things. That's not fun. The purpose, and so it gets ignored. The purpose of it, though, should be to enhance fun because you need to limit resources available to players. So what they take along should matter. To make significant decisions. Significant decisions. So that's what I would say that the purpose there is. Because if you don't have it, then, any system, I suppose, to me, that is limiting the resources you can take along with you, like in a backpack or on a mule or something like that, to me would be a kind of inventory system. But if the inventory and encumbrance system isn't limiting your resources in order to make players make significant decisions, then it's missing its point. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. That's what I'd want it to do. Trey says, strange idea. Have players make characters for a game they know, like Monopoly, and use it to introduce them to the idea of RPGs. Well, that would be interesting. Like your Monopoly RPG character. Interesting. The Nose Play says Darkest Dungeon PC game does encumbrance very well for dungeon crawls. Not sure if board game translates it. Yeah, we haven't looked at the actual rules for Darkest Dungeon yet, and I want to. That's on the list of things to do. And I'm going to play Darkest Dungeon. I might start the like once a week video game streams tonight or something like that, because there are video games that I want to play. I'm not a huge video gamer, but I've made a list. I was like, you know what? There are some games that I want to try, and everybody's telling me to try that one. So that one's on the list. It can be summed up in a single phrase. Packs laden with loot are often low on supplies. The narrator of the PC game says this often. The system basically allows you lots of supplies, but as you collect loot, you have to give up space for the supplies. The system basically allows you the supplies, but as you collect, yeah, right, yeah. So that's what I'm talking about too. Okay, if you're going to try to get out, there's only so much. Also, we talked about getting back from the dungeon. There's only so much that you can carry back with you, or if you got to have food to get back too. So that's making players make decisions. Oh, Mavis Valeria, welcome. Good to see you here. Says, Waves, I'm not sure how I found your stream. Well, maybe the algorithm was working. Maybe that would be great if it was. I'm not sure how I found your stream, but I believe it was Destiny. Maybe it was that too. Thank you for this video. I was thinking about this game recently too. This is my fate. I was thinking about this game recently too. This is my fate. Well, welcome. So glad to have you here. We are doing lots of fun things. Oh, you know what I should do then? Let me make sure that I put the Discord server link. If you're on Discord, let me drop the link to the Discord server. So if you are here watching or you have found us, you can get into the Discord server. I will drop that in the chat right now. And, actually, if you are here and you are not subscribed, I always forget to ask this because it's not something I think about, but please do subscribe to the channel and also do hit the like button, because if more people hit the like button, the YouTube might recommend this stream to more people who might like to find it. So if you would subscribe and also hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. So welcome, Mavis. Welcome. Good to have you. Trey says, Elden Ring is wonderful, but each time it can be frustrating for some people. Yeah, see, that's one that's on the list too, because I've heard people talk about Elden Ring and how great it is, but I've played it, and I should. I don't need to play it for 500 hours of game time, but I should at least try it and know what people are talking about, experience it. Andrew says, I like your mission statement up front to set the tone, then right into a sample bit of play as quick as you can. In your reviews, you seem to go quickly to sample play. It gives the best feel quickly. Yes, I would definitely, as far as rule book structure, of course, that's something else to talk about, but include example of play. Yeah. Include mission statement. So you know what you're trying to do with this game. So, but then also must have example of play. And of course, you can go to video on that as well. Can make videos about that as well. But in the rule book itself, would also want to have that. And then, so this is actually good because we're right here an hour, and this is my last note that is right here. So next time, I guess we'll actually get into some mechanics, not some ideas. But this was really good to get this out and talk this out. I love the discussions that we have here. It's fantastic because it helps. But this is like my thinking. If I were going to do one, and I kind of want to, like I said, I've always wanted to. So now's kind of the time. Ideal. So I would do the rules as setting free. So do a generic system for the rules. Oh, well, let's see. Trey says, that's what this note is up here, Trey. You may have missed it. Unified action resolution mechanic. Yep, that's it. Because that to me is an obstacle that so many people have to RPGs. If there are 5 or 6 different things that you've got to remember for your particular situation, yeah, that's an obstacle. It gets people in the rule book. I want to get them out of the rule book and on the table. So that's how do you play? You need to be able to play the game through a unified action resolution mechanic, whatever that is. That's the goal. So I would say make the rules setting free, but as an additional challenge, I would want it to be appropriate for both Rabivania and Theophany. Now that's an interesting challenge because I had been thinking, well, maybe they're so different. This is a family-friendly world of adventure. Family-friendly world of adventure. Not that it's not serious. It is serious. It's very serious. But this one is more, family accessible. And then Theophany over here is more HBO level Game of Thrones, violence, sexuality, that kind of thing that can be involved here. So those are very different types of things. But I was thinking that as far as my story goes, or my storytelling philosophy, it's my storytelling philosophy in both of those worlds. And so wouldn't it be interesting if there was this rule system that happened to be able to tell great stories, have great adventures at the table in both of these types of worlds? I think it would be. So that's an additional challenge. Make it setting free, but see if we can make it work for those two worlds. That way I don't have to make two, right? That are different from each other. So that is that's my thinking. And you've helped it out. You've definitely helped out with comments and things like that. Additional things to think about, especially new gamers. Thank you, Andrew. And of course, Trey adding things to go and look up. I want to look up the momentum thing. Need to look up the momentum thing. All right. Well, if you are new to the stream, we typically stream here in the mornings for about 1 hour and talk about some kind of topic in the Geekverse. We've been RPG heavy and looking at different RPGs, but we've also looked at board games. Now we're starting to make one. I'm thinking that on Tuesdays, we kind of do the construction thing. Mavis does ask, what would be considered an original theme for an RPG? Oh, man, I don't know. Now, that's world specific. Instead of medieval, steampunk, futuristic, etc., I would like these rules to be able to accommodate medieval, steampunk, futuristic, all of that, and any other world somebody wants to do. So somebody else could use the world to create some type of world with a really original theme. That would be fine. Oh, yeah, see, I need to look at that one too, Trey. Still wrapping my brain around the FKR Messerspiel, but I'm liking it as inspiration so far. Yeah, I haven't gotten to look into that one, but I need to look at that one too. So many things to look at. That's one of the reasons why I started the stream, to look at RPGs, because there was so much stuff in games, because there was so much around here that wasn't getting done if it wasn't being done live. But anyway, so if you are new here, we do that for about an hour, and then we also try to plan our day, because this stream is not only about the Geekverse, but it's also about being productive, having better days, getting done what we want to have done during the day, and then we hold ourselves accountable in the evenings. Although I've been doing different kind of streams other than just the wind down in the evenings now, mixing it up, still trying to find the right order for things and what nights things will come by. But if you would like to join us in being productive, in the last few minutes, we plan our day to decide what we really need to do in order to have a fantastic day for the rest of the day. So let me show you the technique we use.
Well, I manage my department, and I've been doing that for several years now.
Your department's just you, right?
Yes, Jim, but I am not easy to manage.
If you would like to join in on being more productive with me and everyone else here on the stream, but are in need of a system to help you out, here's an easy system that you can adopt and that I recommend. Grab a sheet of paper. I find that an index card folded in half is the perfect size for this. But if you don't have an index card, no problem. Any scratch piece of paper will work just fine. Just grab it and a pen or pencil. Think for a moment and come up with the 3 things that if you were to accomplish them today, you would know and feel that it was a great day. I bet you can take a breath right now and think for just a moment, and you will know what those 3 things are. We're going to call these 3 items our big rocks. Our objective is to move these big rocks during the day. Now, don't make the rocks too big, because then you can't move them. Rocks that are too big to move in about a third of a day, we call those huge rocks. Moving the huge rocks is our major multi-day goals in life. But in order to move them, we have to break up the huge rocks into big rocks that we can actually pick up and move around. But we don't want these rocks to be too small, because although small rocks are easy to move, we don't feel sufficient accomplishment when we move them. Moving the big rocks makes us feel accomplished because they advance us toward our objectives in significant ways. You decide what size tasks are small, big, and huge rocks for you. If you get all 3 of these tasks done, then go ahead and add a 4th or a 5th big rock. But don't do that unless you've finished your big 3. You want to look at your list at the end of the day and feel success and accomplishment. You can use your phone for this if you want to, but I think a sheet of paper is better because then you don't have to pick up your phone to check your list of big rocks and potentially get sucked into all the distraction on your phone. The phone will also let you put 20 or 30 things on the list, no problem. Half an index card will keep this tight and focused. I know there are dozens of things on my to-do list on my computer, and that's too much. This method allows me to extract what I really need to do during the day and focus on that. If you're already using a productivity method that you like, no problem, use that. Do what works for you. Now let's write down our big rocks and try to get them done between now and the wind down live stream in the evening. That's where we check in, see how we did, celebrate success, and see how we can improve tomorrow. If you need encouragement during the day, look to the Ravenkeep Discord server. It's a great and constructive community. Let's take over the Geekverse. All right, so I got my big rocks. You thinking about yours? And you know, one thing I always do is I forget to put down meetings, because sometimes I'll have meetings during the day and I'll be planning my big rocks, and then I'll look at my calendar, and I'm trying to get better about making sure that I look at the calendar and keep everything on it. So the first thing I got to look at is actually my calendar, and if I've got meetings on it, sometimes the meetings, I got to take the meetings, and sometimes they take a while, and so those are big rocks. They take up a chunk of time. I've got to have a meeting today with World Anvil. That's scheduled. So World Anvil, I got a meeting with. Brianna and I are having our next meeting for story discussion. She's been working on her stories. I've been working on mine. I'm getting closer to being able to start, which is going to be a screenplay first, actually. I'm getting closer to being able to start the screenplay, but nonetheless, we're going to have our story discussion this afternoon. I've got to clear my inbox. So those are 3, but hopefully these won't take all that long. And then I'm going to get back to working on some video clips for YouTube, because we've had such great discussions. Some of those things need to be clipped, so I think they'll be more discoverable and be found. And I'm trying to put out, ideally, I'd like to put out 2 of those a day, like at 12:30 and 2:30 or something like that. I think I've got a 2:30 video already locked and loaded for today, but it sure would be nice to put one out at 12:30 as well. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, everybody. I think that was great. I think it was very productive. I hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was a great discussion. I will see you in the Discord server. And then I will also see you tonight for some kind of stream. I'm not sure yet. Oh, you're sending me links. Trey says, okay, excellent. Thank you. I will check the Discord. I will see you in Discord, and then I will see you tonight. Bye, everybody.